My name is John Casey. I'm a school counselor at Cameron Elementary School in the West Humboldt Park area. I became a teacher not long after college. I had an opportunity to work with kids at the YMCA while I was in college. I taught swimming and I enjoyed it, so I went into teaching. That took me to the Peace Corps, where I worked for 2 years as a school teacher. When I got back to Chicago, I got involved with a teacher program through DePaul that got us into urban schools. So I taught for about 8 years. After 8 years of working on the west side, I found it challenging in that the kids coming into school were coming in with a lot of background problems that were affecting the way they were learning. It was hard work, and I went to the principal once and talked about how much I wanted to try and work more directly with families. At the time, our school counselor was resigning, and she told me, get back to school and become a school counselor. So I did. And so for the last 12 years, I've worked as a school counselor. Working with a counselor, I really get to know families well. I had the experience yesterday of meeting up with a third grader. About 2 years ago, we had a shooting in the back of the school. Our class was out in the playground when that happened. We brought them into the building. They were safe. Our aides worked really well to get the kids in. But a number of the kids were really shook up, so I took about 9 of them out and talked to them. Each of the 9 had experienced some traumatic event in the not-so-distant past. For this one girl, it was the loss of a 14-year-old cousin. I stayed in touch with her that year, checked in on her often in the class. I did so again yesterday. She's a third grader. She's reading really well, and she gave me a hug. And that's what I appreciate about the job.
None of the kids were shot.
No. It was just 2 cars going by, taking shots at each other. Our school security guard, who worked a half day, was crossing the street. He almost got hit, but he was fine. It shook us all up. It's the first time bullets landed that close to the school. Hopefully the last. The biggest issue facing union members this year is trying to do our job with fewer resources. I'm a school counselor. I work with families in need. Schools have long been recognized as the entry point for children in need to make contact with health services, mental health services, doctors, our teachers, our clinicians who recognize things, and we can make those connections for families. We're trying to do that this year with fewer people. We don't have as many social workers, we don't have as many psychologists, and we don't have as many nurses in our buildings. But we have a lot more problems. This year is the worst year in terms of shootings in a long time. And we're going into that with fewer people to help out those kids. Trauma affects a lot of families, it affects a lot of kids, and it impacts their education. We can't educate these kids when we've got to do so with such a limited amount of resources. That's the biggest issue. Our atmosphere is good. We have a good principal. We have a positive staff. But we're all working hard. And we're only a week into school. And it's tough. We've got kids coming and going. High mobility is one of the issues we deal with. We have families moving out to leave Chicago. And we've got families coming in because of lost income opportunities in other places. They're moving back in with family here. It's a lot of transitions. It's a lot of adjustment. In the contract negotiations of 2012, I was a part of the school counselor committee. I was a group of counselors who got together to try and change the contract so that the work we do is clearly defined in that contract. In 2012, 4 of us got to sit with Karen and Jesse at the table. I liked how the union did that. Members speaking for themselves for what we need. We made a pretty strong argument in 2012 for why counselors need to be freed from duties like case management and test coordinating. The head of finance at CPS at the time sat across the table from us. He was quiet with his arms folded. When it was done, Karen said, what do you have to say to that? We have members here who aren't asking for raises or they're just asking to do their job. And he just looked up and said, what can I say? You're doing God's work. We ain't got the money. That hurt. our job positions didn't get defined, and we continue doing case management, test coordinating, a lot of tasks that take us away from kids. Jesse asked if I'd be a part of the big bargaining team to represent counselors. I joined on. We sat and got to present our demand again. We'd like counselors to be able to work with children. We did this time in the law offices for the board, the representatives who, the board's representative for bargaining. It was a huge brand new glass table in an office that had floor to ceiling windows that looked over a beautiful downtown. After about an hour and a half of discussing what are some ways we could get counselors to work with kids more directly, we ended the same way we did back in 2012. We'd love to do it, but we just don't have the money. I sat back in that comfortable leather chair, looked out the window and said, that's a shame. It's an awful lot of money out this window here. It's a shame that we don't have money to do what we need to do with kids. This contract fight is about getting the resources we need to work with our kids in public schools. This fight is about saving public education. For a long time now, our cities look to privatize as much as they can, including the education services for our children. This fight is to ensure that our schools have the resources they need to meet the needs of our kids, to make sure we attract teachers, high-quality educators to our schools who can work with our kids. This fight's about a lot more than pay and benefits. It's about saving public education in the city of Chicago. Several months ago, the mayor's team presented a proposal to us. It was what was considered their best offer. That offer relied on loans from banks. Those loans were going to cost the board an awful lot of money. In the 80s, our bargaining team made a deal with the board. They allowed the board to pay the 7% of our pension costs. And because of that, we're in a lot of trouble now. Agreeing to that contract would have given our mayor the ability to make a deal with the banks that would have made a lot of profit for them. That's not the way to fund public education. There's a lot more money in this state. There's a lot of money in this city. Other resources that should be looked at. That's a big reason why we said no to the January contract. The offer that the board made in January hasn't changed in terms of what it would do for us. That offer included a freeze in the development of charters, schools that are opening up rapidly and taking resources from the neighborhood schools. That offer included a benefit to those who wanted to retire, but it didn't support replacing those people. Those things have all been taken away, and yet that offer stays the same. It's not the same offer. It's less than what we were offered in January, and the board hasn't done anything to improve that. That's why we're stuck. The board needs to change what they're offering us. I'm a parent. My kids go to public schools. I don't want to see my kids out of school right now. I have a senior who's trying to get ready for college. Last thing I need to see is 2 or 4 weeks out of school. But if we don't stand up now, if we don't do what we can do to protect education, then I don't know if that education is going to be worth it. Teachers need to be strong. Teachers need to stand up right now to defend our schools. And parents, these are the schools for our children. We want good teachers. We want good buildings. We want quality services. We need to stand with the teachers. There's a lot of rank and file members out there right now who are worried about a strike. They're worried about a strike because of what it will do to their classrooms, just getting the kids started and a large interruption in the middle. I feel that way too. But a strike is the only tool we have to negotiate with this side that has a lot of resources, media, money, lawyers. These are tough times. This is a really tough contract negotiation. We need to stick together. Only in being together are we strong. This is the time to reach out to our families, to community organizations that we work with that support us in the schools, and to reach out to one another. Nobody wants a strike. Nobody wants to walk out the classroom now. But we have to be together. And if that's what we have to do it together. It's the only way we're going to be successful.